Hey, good morning everyone. My name is Max Street and I'm a graduate student in the Department of Forestry, Wildlife and Fisheries at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And today I'm going to be talking about the restoration of pine oak stands along with some ongoing research concerning shortleaf pine in the restoration of those pine stands. So historically, pine oak forests were the dominant forest type across many areas in East Tennessee, particularly here in the Cumberland Mountains. And there were reasons for that were the amount of disturbances that had historically taken place prior to 1950. So people were entering the forests and they were clearing them for cattle grazing. There was naturally occurring and man-made burning going on, and there was also timber harvesting. So, and what those disturbances did was you had a forest canopy that was more open and there was a lot of light reaching the ground. And that light promoted the growth of your shade-intolerant early successional plant species, such as the shortleaf pine. And then after post-1950, a lot of those disturbances, there was a severe reduction in them. People were no longer entering the forest and clearing for cattle grazing the way that they were before. The timber industry had shifted over to the preference of loblolly pine, which was faster growing than shortleaf pine, but shortleaf pine was a preferred timber species due to its wood density, its strength, and its ability to persevere through extreme temperatures. And then along with that, as all these lack of disturbances that had historically taken place were going on, then in the 1990s you had an epidemic of the southern pine beetle. So what little bit of shortleaf pine was left in this area was further reduced, and you were left with singular stems or remote pockets of a few individuals out in the mountains. And then in the forest itself, the conditions changed in that those canopy gaps, they had closed up. And so now you saw the species composition in a forest change to more upland hardwoods, such as your red maple, your tulip poplar, scarlet oak, and chestnut oak. And so where I come in, my research deals with trying to answer that question of how do we get this pine component back into our forests. And in November of 2016, a wildfire occurred here in the Cumberland Mountains, and the forest manager capitalized on that event by entering an adjacent stand to a section of the forest that was burned. And in this new section, they initiated an herbicide application on those dominant hardwood upland timber species like your red maple and your tulip poplar and your chestnut oak, trying to open that canopy back up. And then after this herbicide application, there was a planting crew brought in to help do an underplanting on the residual area of both the area that was burned and the herbicide application. And so what I'm doing is I'm looking at the differences in growth and height of these underplanted seedlings, as well as the growth in the basal diameter. And so what I'm doing is I'm comparing the growth in height and the growth in basal diameter of those underplanted shortleaf pine seedlings on these two treatment sites, along with a control site on a ridgetop that's receiving full sunlight. And along with that, I'm also actually measuring the amount of light that is coming through those canopy gaps that were created due to these new disturbance techniques using what's called a septometer. And it actually measures the photosynthetic active radiation. So we'll be able to quantify, put numbers on the growth that has been achieved across growing seasons for those shortleaf pine seedlings. And so, for instance, as you can see behind me, we have a shortleaf pine here, and this is a 10-year-old stand, and you have growth of 30 to 35 feet. So you're looking at 3 to 4 feet in one growing season, which makes shortleaf pine an ideal species. And so with these underplanted seedlings, we're trying to achieve a mixed hardwood scenario, like going back that pine hardwood that was traditionally here in the first place. And so as you can see behind me, this is a shortleaf pine stand that is 10 years old, and growth has been achieved of 30 to 35 feet over the course of 10 years. So you're looking at 3 to 4 feet of growth in one growing season, which is exceptional compared to, like a hardwood species like an oak. And so, if a landowner is wanting to add a pine component back into their forest, we're trying to look at these are viable ways of wanting and being able to achieve that, whether you want it for timber or you just want to enhance the ecological value of your forest. And so some preliminary results that we're seeing is that growth has been achieved on both the site where the herbicide application took place and the area that was burned. So as a landowner, you have various options that you can do. Perhaps if you're wanting timber, quality timber on your stand for added value to your property, you might want to use a controlled burn, where a lot of these seedlings, they're not having competition come up, unlike over in the herbicide application area. So, going back, we were attempting to establish that pine component back into a hardwood stand in order to create that pine hardwood mixture which we wanted. And we're seeing that growth can be achieved through either option. So thank you for listening.